Okay, so part 3 of our final exam review, we're going to move into the late 60s, early 70s with the Vietnam War. So the Vietnam War was all causes behind it was the idea of containment, okay, and the concept of containment, containing communism, the containment of communism. Okay. And so there was a lot of controversy on fighting in Vietnam that rose. This idea of, anti-war with the counterculture, and also this belief of, is it our job to be the world police and to keep other countries from falling to communism? Okay, so a lot of controversy there on the domestic front back home. Okay, and then we get into the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. Um, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, and this was dealing with the presidential power during a time of war. So what this did was increase the president's ability to send troops into battle or into a country where we feel we have been threatened, um, where we have been attacked. Okay, and this is really unprecedented at this point in time, that the president had the ability to pretty much bypass Congress and send troops right into protection. But again, it went back to that paranoia of the paranoia of communism spreading. But by the end of Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution will be repealed, and the War Powers Act will replace that. And I'll share a little bit about that now with you here. Selective Service Act was the draft, and the reason that's being brought up here is because there were draft. The draft was active during the Civil War. Civil War. Yes, it was, but that's not what I'm talking about. The draft was active during Vietnam, excuse me. And there was a lot of controversy here. First piece, and with the anti-war protests going on in the United States, we saw at this point a shift in American thinking to seeing draft dodgers. Now, don't get me wrong. You had draft dodgers, in Civil War and in the World Wars. However, at this point, you see you see large numbers of draft dodgers in protest. And one of the biggest protests was the fact, dealing with the 26th Amendment, that you could be drafted at 18 years old. 18 years old, but you couldn't vote, okay? And so that's how the 26th Amendment came to be, saying that the voting age will be lowered to 18. Okay, so the War Powers Act in 73 pretty much overturned the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, pretty much stating that the president had to get the consent of Congress to have troops in action over, I believe it's 90 days. Okay, so pretty much limiting presidential power as commander. chief. Okay. So the space race in Sputnik. Sputnik was the first satellite. Was the first satellite put in space and into orbit by Russia, or the USSR, I should say. And that really threw the United States into like a frenzy catapult on the science and math field. So science and math will turn towards a priority during the Cold War. Okay, so like if you've ever seen October Sky, that's a great example of that shift in scientific teaching in the school and focusing on like science fair and things like that. NASA will be created, out of Kennedy's um, presidency, and the space exploration. And the idea of going to the moon, right? We're going to the moon, we're going to the moon, and it may be a hard task, but we are going to the moon. And this race was between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Then we get to major tech drive, okay? So just think, super tech here. Silicon Valley is in California, and it is a major technology development hub. Okay, major technology development hub. Lord have mercy. Can't find my face for. Okay. And out of this, we're going to get the development of the computer, and we're going to see Apple will be born at the company, and television will begin to be used for many ways, and it will also exploit the Vietnam War and what the soldiers were experiencing overseas. Okay. All right, so this is all taking place in the 60s and 70s. We also get Watergate that goes down, which was the red tape Nixon scandal, where Nixon pretty much, refused to release the tapes of the break-in by, his Republican, by Republicans of the time to the Democratic National Headquarters, basically trying to tap the phone lines. And so Nixon pretty much refused to turn those tapes over. Woodard and Bernstein were the correspondents of the media who helped expose and, discuss over the media, about the case and about the impeachment of Nixon. Okay, on live TV. Great Society. This goes back to Lyndon Johnson. All right, in the 1960s. Okay. New Frontier was Kennedy. Okay. And, Kennedy's belief, he wanted to focus on, um, civil rights was a huge piece and caused a lot of controversy on his civil rights stand. Also focus on helping, like welfare or the betterment of the country. And also things like Peace Corps will also come out of the Great Frontier. Just giving your part, doing your part. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, again, Medicare will be a part of that. VISTA, volunteer within the United States. And Johnson will again help promote the things that Kennedy could not get passed, which were things like the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. Okay, sorry. There we go. All right, the 25th and 26th Amendment, we mentioned the 26th before. The 25th became a major deal because when Nixon resigns after Watergate, it's the first time we'd ever had a resignation, so we didn't quite know what happens next. And so the amendment was created to know, what do you do about presidential secession? Okay, who comes next? What order? What is the procedure for resignations, death, or so forth, okay, for the president. And then the 26th Amendment, we've mentioned that briefly earlier, which was lowering the voting age to 18 from 21. Okay. All right. The Yom Kippur War, this goes back to, this begins the Middle East controversy and conflict. Okay. And excuse me. Okay. All right. And the two sides of it were, and Egypt and Syria versus Israel. And it all began when Egypt and Syria began attacking Israeli posts and positions. And it also had to do with the positioning and usage. And we began to get involved because the place of crucial importance to us, the Suez Canal and Middle Eastern trade, especially with oil. Okay, and so it was very crucial that these, two countries not be enemies, since we had allied ourselves with Israel. We didn't want to be an enemy of Egypt, because then that would eliminate our ability to be able to access the Suez Canal, which is a piece of Egypt's territory. Okay, so it was really crucial that we help in this war and be that, world police. Okay, so how did we help, in the situation with the Yom Kippur War? The Camp David Accords was one way that Jimmy Carter in the 1970s will bring together the two sides at Camp David in the United States. And pretty much it was going to be a talk it out session, okay, and they did. And if you hear the picture of the handshakes, right, this was the two sides talking out to create a compromise, which they did, okay. It was a successful compromise and peace was established between. Okay, I will see you guys soon for the next segment.